Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to talk about the movies. I am Sky Jitani, and joining me as always is Josh Lindsay. Hi, Josh.
Hello.
This is episode 8 of the movie proposal. We're really glad you are with us. I think we are now officially live on iTunes. Not live, but we are on iTunes.
You can subscribe, download us, share with friends.
Being a newer podcast, we would love to get your comments, your feedback, your ratings for iTunes, because it's only going to help us, go a little bit further with this. But if you've been with us from the beginning when we were just a back office Patreon kind of subscriber only thing, we appreciate the support because you guys and your enthusiasm have made it possible for us to go out into the wider cyber world. So thanks for joining us for the ride.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, if you are unfamiliar with the movie proposal, here's the deal. We talk about the movies, but every episode we do that based on the theme of a wedding, which is something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, which I learned recently is a very American idea, because I was talking to somebody from outside the U.S. about this framework, and they didn't get it at all. And I forget where that was.
I don't really get it.
I don't know where it comes from.
We should probably research that.
Maybe we should. But we just thought it was a funny way of kind of framing the topics, so we went with it. There's nothing...
I know the bride wears all this stuff.
Yeah, but where did that come from?
I don't know.
And we're not trying to make any kind of political or theological statement here about marriage between any genders. Because there's
it has nothing to do with
nothing
marriage.
to do. It's just a stupid framework we came up with, I think, sitting at Panera one day.
We needed a format.
Yeah. Okay, so we start with something old, which is a brief segment in which we share a movie from the past that we want to reintroduce to our audience because we think it's worth your time and energy to listen to. Josh, what's your something old?
Okay, well, our something new inspired me, so I went with another inspirational film, Rudy.
Rudy.
I saw this. Yes.
Rudy.
My family, we tagged along in my uncle's RV from a trip from Illinois to Dallas for Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So we get to sit in the back, lay on the bed, watch movies.
And you watched Rudy?
Yes. Now, my son especially will comment on how he never sees Dad cry. He's like, Dad, how
because you're emotionally detached
and
and unavailable?
I think so. I just hide it from the kids.
Yeah.
But every time he gets that letter and he gets it into Notre Dame or Notre Dame,
mm-hmm. Notre Dame is the one in Paris.
Yeah, I know.
That's where Quasimodo was. Which Sean Astin looks a little bit like when you think about it.
A little bit. I shed a tear or two. And then he was fascinated that I was crying during this movie. So that was
because it was your dream to always go to Notre Dame and it didn't happen?
I don't know. It's just inspiring. It's
okay.
the guy, the every man in his dream, and everyone tells him no, and he does it.
So that's the extent of your recommendation, just so you can...
Well, it's a great film,
It is
too.
fine. It is a great movie.
And by the music...
I haven't seen it in a very long time.
The music alone...
What's so great about the music?
It's so... Oh, my goodness. It's so uplifting and inspiring, and it's one of those magical...
Who did the score?
Nuts. I don't know.
Jason, intern. He's looking it up.
But we were over Thanksgiving in Dallas. We had a turkey bowl with a bunch of cousins and aunts and uncles, and then someone videotaped it, so I edited it together. I picked the theme music from Rudy to play over it. One of the best family movies ever.
All right.
There you go.
All right. So if you need some theme music for your life,
that's right.
Get it from Rudy.
It works.
Okay. My something old is Back to the Future, parts 1 and 2.
Oh, and 2.
3 is but 1 and 2. And it came to mind because we were almost at the end of 2016.
The music in Rudy was by Jerry Goldsmith.
Who's Jerry Goldsmith?
He did Total Recall, Star Trek: The Next Generation,
all right.
Mulan. He was in the music department.
Oh,
okay. So he's been around.
Done a lot of things.
Okay. So his main claim to fame is Rudy, then.
I guess
it's got to be.
Yeah. It's got to be.
He's known for Rudy.
It wasn't Total Recall.
So Back to the Future is obviously a very well-known series of movies from the 1980s with Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. Anybody our age knows it super well. Our kids probably aren't as familiar with it unless we've shown it to them. I did that a couple years, maybe 2 years ago, a year ago. I let my kids watch. And it's one of those 80s movies moments where you forget how much profanity and innuendo was in a PG movie in the 1980s, and then you watch it with your own children and you're horrified by it. But it's nonetheless, there's still great movies. And the reason it comes to mind is we're almost at the end of the year, and I was thinking back, and 2 significant events this year were both somewhat predicted by Back to the Future Part 2. Now, Part 2 is set in 2015, not 2016, but it did predict that the Cubs would win the World Series. Mm-hmm. And Biff Tannen in the movie is modeled on Donald Trump. If you remember that, when Marty goes back to 1985 and it's the alternate.
Is he really? I mean, he does.
Yeah,
okay.
he's totally modeled after Donald Trump.
I mean, I see the similarities. I didn't realize they picked him.
Yeah, in fact, the filmmakers, there's a YouTube video somewhere of the filmmakers talking about how they intentionally modeled him after Donald Trump.
Interesting.
And I'm not positive, but I thought maybe there was even a reference in the movie about Biff running for president or something like that, and becoming this. So anyway, it's a blast from the past, a great movie, fun. Part 3 is set in the Wild West, which it was okay, but the first one especially was great. The second one wasn't bad at all.
First one by far the best, which is that screenplay is touted as the near perfect screenplay.
Right. Yeah. And there's a documentary that came out recently about the movie.
I saw it.
I saw it too. I forget what it was called.
I don't remember, but I was disappointed.
Yeah, it was kind of cheesy, but again, it gives you some behind the story.
I didn't realize how many, and I think we're talking about the same one, because this was mostly about the fans.
Right.
Right. I didn't realize.
And they're driving a DeLorean to somewhere.
Right. That was one of them. Yeah. And they have conventions and they dress up, and it's very Trekkie
Back
type.
in Time.
Back in Time, maybe?
Back to the Future documentary. 2015.
Yeah, that was probably it.
Yeah, I saw it, and I didn't realize there was such a huge fan base still today.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it in a long time, or you want to introduce it to your kids and you really don't care about their language, check it out. Okay, on to something new. This is the segment where we talk about a newly released movie, or at least maybe a new on DVD or streaming video movie. And Josh and I, both separately but recently, went with our children to see the Disney animated movie Moana.
I like how you always point out that we see these movies separately.
Yes. Because I'm trying to, again, not imply anything about matrimony.
I agree.
And we are happily married to women, separate women. Anyway, so Josh, give us the background on the movie.
Okay, in ancient Polynesia, when a terrible curse incurred by the mischievous demigod Maui reaches an impetuous chieftain's daughter's island, she answers the ocean's call to seek out the demigod to set things right.
Okay, so it's a Disney animated movie set in Polynesia, the Pacific Islands, some time ago, about a young woman, whatever.
She's 16 in the movie.
Okay, named Moana, and the sidekick is pretty much Maui, this large demigod who's voiced by The Rock.
Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne Johnson, right. So what is your proposal?
Okay, I'm taking a different spin on this one, but here we go. This is I propose that Moana is Josh Lindsay's analogy for starting a business put to film.
Oh my goodness! Wait a minute. This is Josh Lindsay's. You didn't make the movie.
I know, and I know they didn't steal my analogy, but as I was combing over this film, and there's so many obvious things we could talk about, but the thing that struck me the most was, I'm self-employed, I've been doing this for 15 years, and the analogy I always use is getting in a boat, leaving the shore, going out to the ocean, and because it's scary but exciting, it's dangerous and lonely, but that's where the great adventure is. This is where you question, am I doing the right thing? Am I good enough? Why am I doing this? How did I get here? This is where you meet God and get mad at God and pray to God and seek God and all these things.
So basically you're saying that you're comparing your entrepreneurial venture with a 16-year-old girl in a boat.
Spot on.
Okay. My proposal is that Moana takes everything Disney has learned from decades of native exploitation and cultural appropriation and makes a great family movie.
Nice. Can you read that one more time?
Yeah. Moana takes everything Disney has learned from decades of native exploitation and cultural appropriation and makes it into a great family movie.
All right, you're going to have to walk us through this.
Okay, so Disney's been criticized for ever for exploiting native cultures and taking myths and stories and legends from Native America, from China, from you name it, some minority culture, and Disneyfying it and exploiting those stories to make money. And in the past, they did this in very ham-handed ways and in a fashion that a lot of people of these original cultures felt were exploitive, right? Exploitative, is that the right word? So that's been a constant criticism of Disney going all the way. I mean, you go to Peter Pan and the way they depict Native Americans in, Tiger Lily and all that.
Right.
You can go back to the Song of the South and the way they depicted African Americans and slaves. You can go to Mulan and the way they depicted.
Was there a lot of criticism for that one?
Oh yeah, and then when you got Eddie Murphy playing a little dragon named Mushu, you know, and the way they depict, you know, ancestral worship and all that. Or another one, I remember this when I was a college student, Aladdin.
They had to take some lyrics out of the song, I remember.
Right, yeah, because it's a complete caricature of Islamic culture. And so this is Disney's MO. They've been doing this forever. And so with Moana, there's been some criticism that they've also now done this with Polynesian culture. And you know, they were more sensitive to it than in the past. Like, for example, both Dwayne Johnson and the girl who voices Moana are actually Hawaiian, I think, by...
Or they have it part of their...
Right, they're native
right.
Polynesian background. And they spent a lot of time and energy studying and traveling to Polynesia and studying the myths and the language and all that, and kind of. But no matter how well you do it, you're always going to be criticized for it. There's just no way around it. When you are an American corporation that's making a movie out of someone else's culture, I don't care how great you are at it, you will be criticized. I'm just saying that Disney has probably done it better with Moana than they have with any other movie.
So you're saying they learn from their past mistakes?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I mean, they're still doing it.
Okay, but your opinion is they've done a better job.
I'm saying that this is a good movie.
Okay.
It's a fun movie. So if you are offended by cultural appropriation, it's not going to help you. You're still going to be offended by this. Like, apparently when this movie came out, they were, as Disney always does, they were making Halloween costumes of the characters. And they made a Maui Halloween costume, which was like a muscle suit that had tattoos all over it.
Yeah.
And then they got just raked over the coals for that, and they had to recall all of those because they thought, you know, you're taking another culture's deity and making it into a Halloween costume. Like, that's
were
not
offensive.
cool.
Oh, I got
yeah,
you.
You see what I mean? So there's just no way you can step into someone else's culture and say, oh, we're going to make a cute kid story out of this, and not in some way offend the native culture that you are drawing those stories from. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm just saying, if you can put a barrier up in your mind about that, it's a good movie.
But I mean, overall, are you saying in terms of like when you compare it to past films, you think they've done a better job?
I think they've learned from some of their mistakes. Like, if they had cast white actors for the voices, they would have gotten creamed for that.
Sure.
So they've made some smart moves there. They took a lot of time and effort. One of the things I heard was, or that I read from another article, is Polynesia is a very, very large place, right? You're talking from Hawaii to New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
Right, from the coast of South America all the way to Indonesia. It's just massive. There's thousands of islands and hundreds of languages and lots of different myths and stories. And so some Polynesians are upset that Disney emphasized certain aspects of Polynesian culture but not others. And it's like,
there's only so much you can do.
Exactly. But that's my point, is whenever you venture into someone else's culture and say, we want to make a fun kid story out of this, you're playing with fire.
I did read that there were people who are upset that Maui, the demigod, was larger in nature. You know, like a big guy.
Yeah.
When you see pictures of the actual demigod Maui, he looks like a surfer dude, like tall and skinny. And so they based him more on what Polynesian culture looks today, which the argument is, you know, when Western culture was introduced to the Polynesians, they started putting on weight, and it's a problem in the culture.
They gave them McDonald's and alcohol and all that.
Exactly. Well, that's America in general.
Okay, so acknowledging the cultural appropriation that's gone on here, it's still a good movie.
It's a great movie.
I was really impressed with it. So what were your favorite parts about it?
Well, I was very... Well, first of all, it's a beautiful film.
Visually. Yeah.
I mean, you forget, with the water and sailing, you sometimes forget you're watching an animated film. So visually, it's a stunning film. The bad guy, you know, that's in it is visually stunning. I did not see some things coming. I didn't realize the whole story, and a little kind of surprise twist at the end, you know, caught me, or were surprising to me.
No spoilers here.
No spoilers. I did like the main character, Moana. I forgot her name for a second, but she, the things that people talk a lot about, and we'll talk about more in a minute, is she's a hero character. There's no love interest, and she's just someone that I would relate to, and was glad that my kids could see, in terms of like someone who was excited and wanted to try something, but it was scary, and went out and did it just to see what she could do. And it really had nothing to do with, you know, finding her prince or that kind of stuff. Or, but to me, it was a simple story of overcoming obstacles and fear. And it was interesting that they did it with this character, Moana, who I enjoyed her character in the film.
Yeah, it had all of the right elements for a great Disney movie. Like you said, it was visually beautiful. The music was really good. They brought in Lin-Manuel, whatever his name is, from
Hamilton.
Apparently, they actually hired him to work on this before Hamilton.
Yeah.
So he's been on it. There was some foresight on their part. The music was really good. The characters are compelling. It's not. I wouldn't say it's going to be like The Lion King or one of these eternal, even Frozen, which was such a huge hit because of one silly song. I'm not sure it's going to be as big as those movies were in Disney's lineup, but it was. Like, I can't point to something to go, oh yeah, that could have been so much better, or that stunk, or whatever. If you are a fan of Disney movies, I think you're going to like this one.
And I think it'll set a trend. I mean, I think it's #1 box office 3 weeks in a row, at least 2. It might be. I don't know what the last weekend was, but it's having a lot of success and get a lot of attention. So I think it'll certainly set trends going forward.
Yeah. So I don't want to dig into the story too much. I don't think there's that much to nitpick about with the story. There's one key thing we're going to talk about here in a second. But
was there something you didn't like about it?
No. It's not. How do I put it? I don't expect that this is going to become a Broadway show. Like, they're making Frozen into a Broadway show. They made Lion King into a Broadway show. I don't think this is like Broadway show compelling cinema.
I don't know. Now that Lin-Manuel is part of it, I bet.
But it was really, really well done, and I liked it. I thought Moana was a compelling character. So I really don't have anything negative to say about it.
Did your kids like it?
They did, but I think they felt the same way I did. It wasn't like, oh, Dad, we got to go again. It wasn't, but they enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good.
We were watching Frozen last night with the kids, and we said 8:30, we're turning the TV off. And we made it clear several times. Mom, okay, Dad, 8:30 comes, turn the TV off. My youngest daughter threw the biggest fit. You just do not turn off Frozen. That is a mistake.
You do not put baby in the corner. Yeah. There wasn't, okay, here's one thing that maybe if I have to find something to be critical of, the sidekicks were not super compelling. Like, they had that stupid chicken. The dumb chicken with the big eyes.
But he made me laugh.
Yeah, but it wasn't like Olaf in Frozen.
No, that's true. That's true.
But they played the part.
But I think they did that on purpose, though. Because they even there's a line in the movie, you're a princess if you have a little sidekick or whatever. And the sidekicks were, which I thought was interesting, was a little pig for a few minutes anyway, and she's eating pork and apologizes to the pig, referencing like, hey, look, you're a cute sidekick, but you're also going to be dinner at some point, right? So let's not take this too seriously. And then Maui referenced the chicken as a drumstick the whole time, ready to eat him. And he never spoke or had a personality, although he did help out in the movie. And so they were both kind of like a lesser role on purpose to make her seem less like a princess, at least the past princesses, and more like a hero type character.
Yeah, which brings us to this Something Borrowed segment. Yeah. And this is where we borrow an article or something from another source. And you found an interesting article about Moana that I think is probably the most compelling aspect of the movie that I wanted to talk about anyway. So tell us about this article.
All right, so this is from Time Magazine, September of this year. The title is Why Disney Decided to Make Moana the Ultimate Anti-Princess. And I'll just read an excerpt here. It says, the newest Disney character to join the ranks of Belle and Ariel is in fact just what she says she is, a heroine. That's the point, says directors Ron Clements and John Musker, who helmed such classics as The Little Mermaid and Aladdin. Quote, we saw this as a hero's journey, a coming-of-age story in a different tradition than the princess stories, says Clements. So instead of focusing on the princesses, which are, just the tradition of how they line them up and the kind of the similar stories, and they're hugely popular, that they saw it as a different take. And I imagine a lot of that's in response to just complaints about, where's the hero female, that we can get behind.
Yeah, I think it's really striking that this is the first lead female character in a Disney movie who is not in any way defined by a man. She's not defined by a romantic pursuit.
Or a relationship. Even.
Or a relationship of any kind. So it seems like Disney has taken some baby steps here where, if you recall in Frozen, there's a duet and there's a love interest and all that, but he ends up being the villain. And there isn't a wedding at the end. There isn't a they kissed and lived happily ever after kind of
Right.
fairy tale ending. So that was kind of the first step. And now in this one, you don't have a prince at all. There is no indication in any form whatsoever that Moana's interested in a boy.
Right.
And it isn't like they're making her out to be some kind of, lesbian heroine. It's just not a part of the story. There is no relationship aspect to this story other than the relationship she has with her parents and her grandmother.
Right.
But I found that really, really good, having two daughters myself. And the other thing I read, I think it was in the same article, was they actually designed Moana as a character to not be this pencil-thin waif of a woman
Right.
who couldn't sail a boat across the water. Like, she actually looks proportionately human and normal, unlike so many depictions of girls and women in our culture.
Right. She has to be able to steer a ship out on the ocean and be convincing, looking like she's doing that. So
I'm not one of these people who wants to do away with all traditional models of male, female, boy, girl relationship. Like, that's somehow bringing violence to women if you connect them. I think it's fine to have those stories, but I do think it's great once in a while to have a story like this.
I think refreshing is the word that I thought of.
I thought it was really, really well done. And I think the success of this movie proves that there's an audience for movies like this where you can have a strong female lead character that isn't defined by relationships.
Yeah. I like, because what you were saying, that there is no love interest or relationship, they weren't making a statement. They just left that part of the story out. And so she definitely could, be happily married one day and so on. But it was focusing on just that journey of who am I and am I good enough? And I also have two daughters. And I took my youngest daughter, but also took my son. And both of them could look at this character as like, wow, this is an inspirational character I can, be excited about and model after and so on.
And what stood out to me in this is two recent movies where there were brief little inserted moments that were advocating kind of an LGBT agenda. One was in the new Star Trek movie, which I think we talked about, where they showed that Captain Sulu, whatever.
Oh, he was gay?
That he had a male partner.
Yes.
And then there was that brief moment in Finding Dory where there was a little girl in a stroller and she was depicted as having two moms.
Yeah, that was super fast. Yeah,
right. Super fast. Both of them were pretty quick little, but I'm like, okay, those were intentionally inserted into those movies just to make a point.
Right.
And the filmmakers here could have deliberately inserted a boy character and have Moana like, I don't need you, I'm an independent woman kind of thing.
Right.
But they just said, you know what? We're not even going to go there. We just ignore it completely.
They told a good story.
Exactly. And so, and this is something I hate when these stories, especially when they're directed at kids or families, end up having this political undercurrent to them or a cultural undercurrent. It's so much better just to let the story lead. So if there's a compelling reason to have a gay character in a story, then have a gay character in a story. But if you're just going to shoehorn it in there to say, oh, look, we have a gay character, that feels really stupid. Or a feminist character or whatever, or a Christian character for that matter. Right? It should seamlessly fit in with what the narrative is demanding.
Agreed.
And I thought they did it right. There's a strong female lead character who's not defined by a man, but it's not because they put it in your face that way. It's just a good story.
So if A, you're looking for a good holiday film to see, hanging out, got some time off, want to see with the kids, recommend it. Mm-hmm. And B, if you're going to start a business, I really think you should see this movie.
Talk about that a little bit more. Why is this so, like, what did you come away with that made you invigorated about?
Just because one of the reasons I go to the movies is to be inspired, to walk out of there and just full of energy and life and ready to just be renewed and tackle whatever it is I want to tackle, whether it's in business or marriage or in whatever it might be. And this is a film I certainly walked away from inspired and uplifted, and where a character is facing fear and dangers, and it just happened to be the analogy I personally used was leaving the ocean.
So is like one of your grandmothers reincarnated as a stingray?
Oh man, I wish.
Or do you have a demigod that kind of accompanies you in your business practices?
If only.
If only.
Yeah, no, but I do think the idea of setting sail into the darkness and the sea, and you're having your boat overturned, questioning whether you're good enough. Those are things I have faced being self-employed. And like I said, that's why I enjoy the movies, because I want to be reminded of why do we fight hard to, to love our families or to pursue goals or to make a difference in someone else's life. I think good storytelling in films remind me of that and inspire me to keep doing that.
Along those lines, I think this is an interesting parable about sort of a theology of vocation, because the emphasis in the story is that the ocean is calling Moana to a task, and yet her parents have a different calling for her, especially her father, who wants her to stay on the island and become the next ruler, chief, queen, whatever. And it's this tension between callings. And it was nice that finally there's a story in which the calling wasn't just to some romantic, prince somewhere or whatever. So, but that tension of callings and how do we juggle those callings, and the grandmother's role in helping her discern her calling and all this. So anyway, it was fun. I agree. I think there's a lot of life lessons to be drawn here. And yeah, so if you and your family are interested for a holiday movie, this is probably a good one. So Josh, would you take Moana to be watched again?
I would, actually.
I would too. I think if my kids want to watch it when it comes out on video, I will gladly rent it. All right, finally, we've done something old, something new, something borrowed. Time for our final segment, something blue, something that either blew our minds that we saw recently or that blew chunks because it was so bad.
Now, before I tell you mine, are you going blew your mind or blew chunks?
I wanted to blow chunks, but I'm going blow my mind
All
again.
right, I'll go blow chunks this time.
Because you had either?
I have both, yeah.
Okay, what blew chunks?
Secret Life of Pets.
Oh, see, I just came back from a very long overseas trip where I had to watch multiple. I didn't have to, but I did watch multiple movies on the flights, and that was an option, and I didn't do it. And now I'm glad I didn't.
Now I would say blowing chunks is it's kind of it might be taken a bit extreme. It wasn't horrible. I wouldn't say don't see it, but I was very disappointed. I was bored, and it's one of those movies where they take, I don't know how many actors they hired, like well known from the movies, like Louis C.K. was the lead, and then the guy from Modern Family, but there's people from The Office and other just actors.
So that's where they put their budget, clearly.
Oh my goodness. And the story, I think, was just it was bloated. It had funny moments in there, but they could have focused on a simple odd couple story and made it a compelling story, but they just dumped too much into it, I thought.
So is this a case where all the funny parts were in the trailers?
A lot of them are, yeah.
Yeah. That's too bad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll skip it. Okay. My blew my mind piece is, this will not surprise you. The trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming came out this week. I'm sure you saw it.
Yep.
I am super excited about this movie. Okay. First of all, it's, for those of you who don't know the business behind all this, Marvel Studios has been making hit after hit after hit in their movie department. Marvel Studios, which is owned by Disney, did not own the rights to the Spider-Man character, film rights to the Spider-Man character. They were owned by Sony.
Right.
So the last number of 5 Spider-Man movies have all been made by Sony, which have not done, the last couple have not done super well. So Sony struck a deal with Marvel that allowed them to use the character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Marvel and Sony together are producing this new movie. And a lot of people were wondering, well, how's this going to turn out? People were optimistic because Marvel was involved, but a little pessimistic because Sony was still involved. But the trailer with Tom Holland looks super cool. And the thing that they're doing with it that I find I'm really excited about is that they, first of all, Spider-Man is clearly a teenager again, right? He's a high school sophomore. And the other thing is, it's called Spider-Man Homecoming. It's got double meaning. One is Spider-Man is in high school and it's set during homecoming.
Oh, duh. Right.
Duh. But it's also that Spider-Man is coming home to Marvel because they're in charge of the movie again.
I got that one. I didn't get the other one. Okay.
In the trailer, you can see them hanging a homecoming banner. Yeah. Tom Holland is a British actor, but he does a good American accent. He looks like a teenager. He's got that goofy teenage thing, and they're going for this John Hughes kind of vibe with the movie. And I think, at least in the trailer, they nailed it.
And Iron Man is in it.
Yeah, Iron Man
character.
Right, he's kind of a mentor to Peter Parker. So he's in it to a little bit. I'm just so excited they're taking one of the best comic book characters and finally giving them a decent movie after so many years. So I could be wrong. We'll see how the actual movie turns out. But you know what? Marvel's been hitting them out of the ballpark.
Yeah, I watched the trailer several times. I agree. It was awesome.
Was there anything about it that struck you in particular, or
Iron Man, or I should say, not even Iron Man. It was, what's his Robert Downey Jr.'s character's name?
Tony Stark.
Yeah. That his character's in there, and just the interaction was very funny.
Yeah.
But I did like the Tobey Maguire, the first two.
Yeah, the first two were
I
pretty
thought those
good.
were good. But now that they're connecting it to the Marvel, this is very exciting to me.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So, unlike Warner Brothers and DC Comics, which every movie blows chunks, and I watched Suicide Squad on this flight. Maybe we'll talk about that in a future podcast. What a horrible movie! Like my expectations for Wonder Woman are so low at this point.
Then you'll love it.
Maybe, but Marvel, I cannot believe they're still doing as well as they are, and I'm hoping that Spider-Man is another one. So, final comments, thoughts, words, anything, Moana? What do
Well,
you...
and just in general, I mean, we are on iTunes, and I just want to encourage people to, see the, go out there, give us, their thoughts, rate us if you can, share it, and we're also on YouTube. So if you look up Phil Vischer, you can find us there as well.
Yeah, for reasons we can't explain. It's Phil Vischer.
This is his studio.
It is, I guess, but we'll be around. We'll put it in other places as well. You probably find it on my website. Final comments. Go to my website, skyjitani.com. You can sign up for my newsletter for free. You can get access to, I got some new monographs and books on there. There's the daily devotional you can always sign up for. It's a great gift for friends and family at the holidays. I think our next podcast is probably going to be on Rogue One.
Oh, I already got my tickets.
I don't have my tickets yet.
What?
We have a lot going on this weekend. I'm just trying to figure out where I can squeeze it in. But early reviews are coming in, and they're looking really good.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited about that. So come back for the next episode. And until we see you, you can kiss this episode goodbye.
Hello, anybody home? Think, McFly. Think.